Doesn't work, just doesn't work. So we can introduce the subject of climate change by making links just in our conversation. Again, that's identifying and will range based on the person you're talking to and their interest in everyday life. Making it real is bringing it home, connecting it right to the community. Again, people are gonna naturally have concerns, they're gonna push back at you, and hopefully with the resources and other things available that you're able to kind of help them move along. And again, because people like to know what they can do, taking action is important, right? It helps them feel like they've made a difference in whatever capacity that is. My favorite part, and is the most fun, is exiting with grace. You did your job. You can go home and sleep at night. I always like to tell people that this isn't like an overnight thing. You can't just like switch the light bulb and people's perspective change. It's like chipping away, right? And really kind of, you're in it for the long game with people. So the last part of my presentation, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about advocacy and what we can all do to help bird populations through the lens of policy and just in our communities. So this is how to become a champion for birds in conservation. This is Audubon's 2018 agenda. We're still kind of crafting what 2019 will look like based on who got elected this past November in midterms. But we want to be strong advocates for the places where birds need. So that's the Arctic Wildlife Refuge, which is currently, it got included in the GOP tax plan. They might potentially be opening up oil drilling up in the Arctic. That's always been an issue that's happened year after year, and luckily is a process. But Audubon will be there on the forefront, making sure that communities and birds are protected. We also want to ensure that bedrock laws, like the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the Endangered Species Act, are protected. Again, the administration loves to attack these ones and gut them, any type of way that they cannot include wildlife as an importance. So we're definitely on the defense for that. Sage grouse was a huge issue in the National Defense Program. This is something we actually won, and all of our chapters in New York are really active on the issue, which is great to see, even though we don't have sage grouse here in the state. But again, these are on the national scale. For us too, it's all about funding, making sure that the environment has the right resources it needs to be maintained and have longevity. So that's the Land Water Conservation Fund. Unfortunately, at the end of September, it didn't get reauthorized. So I think it will have some reworks to it. But the LWCF is important for like our nature centers, like rest stops, et cetera, all places that we need to recreate and enjoy. Great Lakes Restoration Fund, again, a little bit up in the state, making sure that those are clean water resources, healthy for birds, and has the funding to do stewardship around the Gulf Coast and then the Everglades too. So we're on the offense, the positives, the goods, is climate solutions. Luckily, there's a lot of people out there that want to help curb climate change, which is great, right? But they need a little bit of guidance, templates, how can I make a difference? And that's where Audubon is helping out. And I'll dive into a little bit of that later. Coastal conservation is also being impacted by climate change, but is actually a great way for us to be active in restoration, making sure that birds have the habitat they need to thrive. On Long Island, we're doing that. Throughout the state, we're doing that. I'm happy to talk with people more about that as well later on. Western water is obviously an issue. We have a lot of rain here, but out west, not so much, right? And there's strict laws to reduce people's water usage, et cetera. And the Farm Bill is actually a great tool to talk to Republican lawmakers. It's the largest federal funding source, and for those up in the, in the Hudson Valley, District 19, John Faso is really active on Farm Bill, et cetera. It's a great way for Audubon to have a foot in the door and to help identify a working place for us to move together. A lot of people are shocked by that, but the Farm Bill is a great motivator. So within our national Audubon priorities, New York helps to mesh those together. So these are just three of the many that we have, but we want to help protect and strengthen clean energy policies. The governor has the 50% renewables by 2030 goal, and that's to reduce our emissions significantly due to the Paris Accord. And he primarily wants to do that through wind energy, which will be on the shores of Long Island. Audubon's active in that issue. We've actually been in meetings in the planning process, and what we want to do is make sure that they're responsibly cited, that it's reducing the minimum of bird populations that it can. It's still going to impact birds no matter what, but we're happy to have a seat at the table. So that's always a positive. as well. And again, with climate change being the greatest threat to our birds, we're going to have some give and takes. So promoting renewable energy does have its costs, but again, helps reduce the greenhouse gas initiatives that are ultimately going to be impacting birds in the long haul as well. And what we like to do is not to green swap. So we're not going to like clear cut a forest, and put up solar. We would make sure that the places where we do promote solar are like on rooftops or landfills, like already occupied spaces that can have those renewable options integrated in them already. So again, I already mentioned that funding was something super important to us on the national scale. In New York, it's also super important. The Environmental Protection Fund gets lobbied around Valentine's Day every year. So if you want to show your love for the environment, you can connect with me and we can go lobby together. I do this every year. Right now it's again $300 million. We want to continue that budget moving forward. But it's just a great, easy way for people to meet locals that have power. And you, the constituency, obviously has the most influence versus me, a lobbyist, going in and telling them what's up. Also, the Healthy Forest Initiative, we got a good chunk of forest throughout the Atlantic Flyway and also in New York, making sure that it has the proper funding it needs for forestry, maintenance, uptake, et cetera, because a lot of our birds need the forest to thrive. Lastly is making sure that our coastal landscapes, like on Long Island, are climate resilient. That's Plum Island's been our primary target, but again, it's all about protecting shorebirds. So in New York specifically, when we talk about clean energy, I was kind of telling you that come January, we're going to be launching this kind of campaign with municipalities, making sure that they can reduce their greenhouse gas initiatives. And how we're going to do that is actually through a resolution, local resolution that supports the action of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions through clean energy. And hopefully we have a ripple effect, right? That if enough communities within a district are active on this issue, maybe that's going to influence that person in power of the congressional member level. And this will be a great campaign, hopefully, in redder parts of the state to see, are Republicans supportive of clean energy? Can we make this happen? If any place in the nation, it would be great to see it in New York. So I'm optimistic, I'm positive, but we'll see come January how it all unfolds. So these are just some important questions that we ask people when we talk about climate. What is important to you? Who shares your values? And this is all part of like building that campaign plan of like, who are our greatest allies? Like who's going to be behind us and help us achieve this work, et cetera. But it all takes building that community consensus in order to make it follow through and be active. Audubon's really unique, right? We have this vast chapter network, and as I mentioned earlier, our members identify politically all over the spectrum. So with congressional offices or just members of power, they trust us due to our brand and who we are, and so that kind of gives us an easy access into the door. Chapters obviously are local everywhere. They have connections, deep roots, and are helping to educate and move people along to preserve birds. And again, we have power and influence. I always like to tell people that if you have a story and you have something really convincing, why not share that to your local member of Congress or municipal member, et cetera. It's worth hearing your stories and passions for birds. And if you need any help getting in the door, please let us know and we can help make that happen. We're also trying to build relationships for ongoing advocacy. This will be important in districts that flipped in New York, that person in power is no longer there. How do we build relationships and make sure that conservation is a priority for them moving forward? And again, elected officials are always more motivated when they hear from their constituency. It may not always be easy to get them their attention, but we can help you with tips and tricks to make sure that you're concise, making it relevant to them, and making sure that your time together is the most effective moving forward to create that concrete action, what you want to see down the line. So this is how we have an impact. Again, we have the 27 chapters throughout the state. Andy and others, our ambassadors, trained. I think we're now up to 400 throughout the state. We have 70,000 people engaged online. So those are people who just interact with us through social media, through our emails, et cetera. And what we're trying to do is connect those 70,000 to more of our chapters on the ground, making sure that they have a continual engagement in Audubon. Also through partners, we expand our reach. And there's actually 1.5 million bird lovers in New York State. Who'd have thought, right? And they may or may not be active with Audubon, but hopefully we're providing an engagement or creative outlet for them with our organization. So again, that kind of ramps up this army, this huge flock of people to help us protect birds now and into the future in the face of climate. So let's talk about the MBTA, right? It was passed in 1918. It's one of our greatest cornerstone conservation laws, and we're celebrating the centennial of it now, 2018. National Geographic announced it Year of the Bird, and that was all in support of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the centennial. And each issue, they kind of talk about, what are different ways that people can be inspired and motivated by birds. And Audubon's really taking this Year of the Bird, which sadly is coming to a close, and every day is Year of the Bird, right? Through the MBTA lens to grow awareness and make sure that people are equipped when the threat does become more real to act on the issue. So again, celebrating the centennial, it made it unlawful to kill, hunt, sell, possess most native species of birds. Again, a treaty between Canada, Mexico. Birds are migrating a great distance. It makes sense that we protect them no matter where they fly to. Later in the 70s, they incorporated incidental take. So let's say that an oil spill occurred through like BP or whatnot. That industry would be held accountable for all the habitat they destroyed and all the birds along with it. And they have to pay out for the restoration. Of course, industries, they don't want to be paying out money, right? Who wants to pay out money for, destroying the earth? So right now, Liz Cheney introduced the Secure American Energy Act, which would take out incidental take. It essentially guts the protections that birds have in the modern era in the world. So again, if an oil spill occurred on Long Island or anywhere, the industry would no longer be accountable to clean up their mess. And they wouldn't have to pay out for any birds that were destroyed. The MBTA is also significant with a lot of our energy corporations, birds flying into power lines, making sure that there are regulations, policies in place, guidance to help birds, no matter where they fly to and call home, are protected. So again, would no longer include incidental takes. And Audubon, we're going to say that this is giving industries a free pass to kill birds. Like, it's just not responsible in any way. Again, a law that's been around for 100 years now, really not doing what it was intended to do, which was, again, to protect birds that are migrating through. Something you may get in your inbox are these action alerts. Are they subscribed to Audubon emails? I see a handful. Yeah. These are quick, easy ways to let your local official or key people out there know that this is an issue that you care about. And what's great is when their inbox just gets pinged, in the masses with important issues. So this one, I'm happy to follow up with you all, is again to stop industries from gutting the MBTA. And again, if you filled it out once, it automatically uploads your information. And then it does provide some sample text for you. But what we actually found is that messages that have similar text get grouped together and may not be recorded. Like, they'll just say that, okay, 5,000 people sent me this message. Anytime that we can adapt or just like slightly change the message helps it have more visibility and gets it recognized. So it only takes about 10 seconds, right, to change language around, but you have the option to do so in any of these alerts as well. Lastly, I want to say that it's so important to not just do this work by yourself, to have people back you on it. This is me 3 years ago without a beard. But the poster says it all. Like, it's time to give a flock. If we're not doing this work, who is going to do it, right? And as with birds being a great messenger, and we have all such intimate connections throughout our communities, whether that's through our backyards, through our parks, etc. There's definitely a reason why we need to protect them now and into the future. And again, we're all in this together. So these are two of my coworkers that help me work on just community partnerships and policies. If there's any way that we can assist you here locally in this community or wherever you're from, let us know, and we're happy to help you protect birds. So here are some next steps for folks. Again, I'll be following up with this information. Any way that we can help shape the dialogue around the MBTA locally does make an impact. It helps us grow who's aware of the issue, and you can do that through submitting a letter through the editor, an LTE, or an op-ed piece. feel free to contact me. I'm happy to give you some sample language, and then you can just like tweak and modify it. A lot of papers are receptive to picking this up because it's become such a hot topic across the US. So it's a great way, again, to grow exposure and make sure that more and more people are out there to protect this law. And again, no dire threat to this, but the MBTA, but we do want to make sure that people are prepared when it does come to, like, you know, pounce and make sure that, you know, we can secure this one in the bag. And again, for Audubon, that was like what we got founded as an organization over 100 years ago. Like, of course, we're going to be here active in this fight, making sure that it gets passed. Another thing is around the Land Water Conservation Fund. Like I mentioned, it didn't get reauthorized at the end of September. All the members throughout New York were very supportive of this bill. Obviously, we see great economic impacts with the Land Water Conservation Fund. So if we can be kind of a motivator and symbol, it's great. So if you have the time to call or write your representative, that's effective as well. I talked a little bit about the clean energy resolutions for your community. Again, we're launching that in January, but if anyone kind of wants to get going on planning that now, feel free. I'm so excited about it. It's a new sector of focus for Audubon, but we're trying to show that solar and birds can coexist. And again, connecting with your local chapter, they're the boots on the ground. They're the people who will be there for you locally. Obviously, when I can't, because I'm up in the capital region. But they have meetings and events throughout. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about what Sawmill River Audubon's doing, but I'm happy to give you some time. One thing, too, is throughout the Year of the Bird, you can submit these proclamations through municipality. And actually, counties throughout New York are doing this on the countywide scale and saying that 2018 is the Year of the Bird. This is the year that we are celebrating migratory birds. And that's so cool, right? That people are making a public statement to show that, yeah, we're gonna protect birds. Like, are you kidding me? Let's do this. So there was some here locally that were done. Otsego County up in central New York just passed theirs, which is super exciting as well. And you can do this on the local level, you know, even in Croton as well. I mentioned earlier that community science is so important in putting forth our science and studies, again, helping us to see where birds are, where they're traveling to, you know, is this bird supposed to be here? You know, what caused it to get here? All of that we know through community people like yourselves out in your backyards and your fields, entering on your phones. You know, you can also see other people and what they've entered. That's often how people find out about like a rare bird that's in the area. I saw my first snowy owl by going through eBird and, you know, tracking, driving it down. So again, any way that you can help record helps us protect birds. And lastly, an easy solution for people is to plant natives. Again, helps to regenerate habitat, is something that provides nutrients for birds as they're migrating through. And we say, plant them, you know, and they'll come. It's crazy. So that's it. Thank you all for listening to me.